Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 204. Unidentified Wall. Part 1. I left Aileen, Mark and Jang Haeung to clean up outside and dragged the unconscious Han Myung-go back to the office. To be honest, it was a revelation. I never thought Han Myung-go would still be alive. Department Head Han Myung-go. Before we reached the third scenario, he was cursed by Demon King Asmodeus after killing the Dark Keeper. I thought he had died before I entered Chunmuro and hadn't expected to meet him in the demon world. I placed Han Myung-go on a chair in the meeting room. I used a story suppressor that I had borrowed from Aileen. Kim Dokja thought, the department head has aged a lot. There were many small wrinkles on Han Myung-go's face. Moreover, his whole skin was blackened. Putting aside the wrinkles, the skin discoloration was a sign of a species variation. The longer I looked, the more I could see the old face. Still, many human traces were missing, and it was hard to know without looking closely. Yu Sanga, Lee Gil-young, my mother, and Song Minwo. They were the people I couldn't confirm using character list. All of them were people who were involved with me before the scenario or at the start of the scenario. Han Myung-go was also one of them. They survived in this world because of me. That's why I couldn't read their information with character list. I know you're awake, so get up. You. Han Myung-go. I asked the spy, no, the self-styled Aurelius. Aurelius. Did you pick the name personally? Han Myung-go opened his eyes, and I was filled with a vague feeling of certainty. Aurelius. This was the decisive clue that convinced me this person was Han Myung-go. A web novel? Hey Kim Dokja SSI. How much time do you have to read this shit? During my days at Minosoft, I had heard these words after I was caught reading a web novel. If you are going to read a book, then you should read something like this. Read a good book if you want to build up your specs. Han Myung-go was holding the book called Meditations, written by Marcus Aurelius. The first few pages of the book were completely discolored. You usually carry the meditations book that you can't read. Your bluffing still remains. Who the hell are you? Han Myung-go didn't recognize me at all. It was because I changed my face ahead of time. If I hadn't done that, I might be the one to fall into the trap. I smirked and asked, who do you think? At this moment, something flashed through Han Myung-go's eyes. Don't tell me. As expected, Han Myung-go was Han Myung-go. Even the parachute department head needed to do some work to survive. I quietly brought a finger to Han Myung-go's lips that were opening. Shoo. Oof. 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 If you say anything, then you will die here. Think to yourself. Do you understand? I was worried about another transcendental existence listening. There were no Dakibi channels here. However, the lack of a channel didn't mean there was no way for other beings to peep. The fourth wall says that the Demon King, Demon of Rage and Lust, is looking at stupid Kim Dokja. Better than expected. It could tell me something like this? Ahem. Demon of Rage and Lust. Like constellations, the Demon Kings had their own modifiers. After all, they were fallen constellations. Of course, there were those who didn't use the modifiers as resistance against the constellations. If I remembered correctly, Demon of Rage and Lust was the nickname for Demon King Asmodeus. Han Myung-go seemed to be his subordinate. It was a high-level position where his vision was shared. Shouldn't you pay coins if you want to keep peeking? Han Myung-go's eyes widened again when he saw me speaking towards the air. He noticed who I was talking to. Small sparks appeared in the air. If this continued, Asmodeus was likely to gain my information. One day I would reveal my story, but now wasn't the time. I thought for a moment before pulling a sword out of my coat's subspace. It was the 4-in demonic beheading sword. It had been a really long time since I used it to destroy the Absolute Throne. It was a sword that could temporarily evolve to a star relic if the power of the Big Dipper was borrowed. It was a sword that could break through the constellation's affinity with the star relic. Originally, I required the help of the Big Dipper to manifest that strength. Now that I was a constellation, I could use the power of this sword without their help. The 4-ing demonic beheading sword has responded to your story. If you aren't going to pay, then get lost. I swung the sword over Han Myungo's head. The message appeared as I swung the sword, and strong sparks appeared in the air. The connection between the Demon King Asmodeus and his household member is temporarily disconnected. Han Myungo was now shocked, beyond surprise. He never thought I would have the power to break off his link with the Demon King. I warned Han Myungo. "Here, my name is Yu Jonhyuk. Not if you understand." Han Myungo stared at me with a complicated gaze and barely nodded after thinking about it. He made the correct judgment because he knew that his life was precious. I released his mouth and Han Myungo gasped as he looked up at me. How the hell? I heard you were definitely dead." "I'm not dead. Thus, I'm alive." The terrified Han Myungo asked, What are you going to do with me?" "We'll see. I'm thinking." Help me. The years we spent together aren't short. I don't have any good memories of those years. I am a spy. I can help your revolution. I can see other people's positions. It seemed to be true that Han Myungo was a spy. Indeed, the spy didn't emerge in the 111th regression. It wouldn't be strange if a surprising person appeared as the spy. I don't need a spy. I found the executioners without you. Han Myungo's eyes once again shook at my words. Then Han Myungo spoke the question he had been curious about. "That reminds me, how did you find the executioners?" I roughly knew what was going on, but I decided to be fooled for a bit. I didn't know they were executioners. What? Then how? My words were true. The descriptions of some executioners appeared in Ways of Survival, but it was written in passing, and I didn't remember them. It would also be hard to recognize just based on the description. I didn't kill them because I knew they were executioners. I just used a skill to figure out that they had a special position. That information was enough for Kim Dokja. Han Myungo didn't know anything and exclaimed, "The people you killed could have been innocent or have important positions." "Why yes. For example, a fighter or..." "Stop talking about useless things. If you are trying to drag out the time because you think other nobles will come to rescue you, they won't come." Ha ha. What do you mean? It is only the executioners that the citizens are afraid of. Without them, the nobles can't easily invade the civilians' area. Now that he realized that things were wrong, Han Myungo's struggles became worse. He stared at me with red eyes and yelled, "If you kill me, you will receive the Demon King's wrath." My previous self would have been afraid. Do I look like I'm afraid of the Demon King? I raised my constellation status. It was to such a slight extent that the dukes of the industrial complexes and the demon kings of other demon realms wouldn't notice. No matter how light, I was a constellation and it was sufficient to kill Han Myungo. Han Myungo trembled before finally giving up. "What do you want?" It was the question I had been waiting for. In any case, Han Myungo was someone who had made contact with the demons here. It would be wiser to use him as much as possible. Make an oath of existence. Do you know what it is? That. Do it if you want to live. Or you can go out and be beaten to death by the common people. Han Myungo sighed. What do you want me to swear? You won't interfere in the revolution. You won't lie. You will truthfully answer any questions I ask and cooperate with me wholeheartedly. For how long? 1 year. Shit. It was better to have a deadline when making such a violent oath. If I forced a permanent oath, then the object of the oath might go crazy. If they were given hope that the oath would one day end, the other person would agree to the oath more easily. I understand. I will make the oath. Sparks sprung from Han Myungo's heart and the oath was completed. Now there was a question I wanted to ask Han Myungo. Department Head Han Myungo. How are you still alive? Han Myungo started telling his story. The hardships he suffered after separating from us at Chungmuro and how hard it was for him. He tried to make himself look as poor as possible, and I interrupted in the middle. Tell me the important things. What do you mean? At that time, you obviously received the Demon King's curse. How did you become a subordinate of the Demon King? Asmodeus isn't that simple in existence. One of the 72 Demon Kings, Asmodeus. No matter how long Han Myungo's tongue, he didn't have the ability to bewitch the Demon King. In addition, Han Myungo didn't have a unique story. The Demon Kings were just as jaded and bored as the constellations. The story of a department head of a big company wouldn't be sufficient to even talk to the Demon King. Han Myungo licked his lips for a long time and his expression distorted in a miserable manner. I was about to rush him when Han Myungo opened his mouth. I gave birth. Huh? Quack. I thought I heard wrong. I was about to ask again when Han Myungo burst out crying. I gave birth to a child. Chapter 205. Unidentified Wall. Part 2. Unfortunately, Han Myungo's words didn't continue. Han Myungo was knocked unconscious because he received a penalty from disclosing some of the details of his contract with Asmodeus. I felt a bit sad because it was broken off at the exciting part. Kim Dokja thought, in any case, the Demon Kings and constellations have started to show interest in this world. The land of abandoned scenarios, the Demon World. This world, which had long been shunned by the constellations, was starting to receive attention again. Humans can't beat them. Compared to them, we are just insignificant bugs. Han Myungo had said this several times. He had been in the demon world for several months, so he was well aware of the strength of the senior nobles and demon kings. This despair was understandable. In fact, even the early mid-Yu Jonghyuk had struggled in the demon world. Of course, that was Yu Jonghyuk's story. I was different. My stomach started growling because I had stayed awake all night. I headed to the pub and asked Mark to cook some simple dishes. Jang Haeung was sitting absent-mindedly at a table. I quietly approached him and sat down. Hike. You say that every time. Jang Haeung stared at me with an ugly expression and screamed, "What is it? What? What other issue are you coming to create? Why are you so grouchy? Never mind. Why? What happened?" Jang Haeung couldn't easily answer my question and stared at the plate in front of him. I knew that I couldn't urge him and just waited. Mark glanced between Jang Haeung and I. It was unknown what he was thinking, but he suddenly winked. After a while, Jang Haeung opened his mouth. "Why did you let me join the Revolutionary Army?" "What? I'm not a guardian or revolutionary. I'm not the chairman of the civil council like Aileen." The character Jang Haeung has used lethargy LV4. The character Jang Haeung has used self-loathing LV10. Damn, it was starting. I had forgotten for a while. If Yu Jonghyuk suffered from the regression depression, then this person suffered from a thorough self-loathing. I didn't think there were any main characters of Ways of Survival who were sane. The small shoulders quivered. I would feel better if I hit him on the shoulder, but it would be hard for him to feel comforted. Your understanding of the character Jang Haeung has increased. Jang Haeung stared out the window. He seemed to be looking at Aileen, who was cleaning up the previous incident. Jang Haeung spoke again. "Night will come again. Will you still be able to protect the people?" "Maybe not," I answered honestly. "I don't know all the executioners. It is impossible to catch all of them before tomorrow's night." There were 7 executioners who hadn't been caught. If those 7 people made up their minds and started attacking people, tomorrow night would be a bloody festival. I added before Jang Haeung could fall into despair. There is no other way to stop it. We must find the fighter. The fighter. It was the only position that could deal with an executioner during the night. If I could find that position, it wouldn't be unreasonable to restore the atmosphere. However, Mark interrupted from where he was cooking. I'm sorry, but there probably won't be a fighter. What? Mark, how do you know this? There is no one from the old generation to pass on the skills of a fighter. Unlike other positions, a fighter could only receive the position through succession. Mark kept speaking. After the fighter died protecting the former revolutionary, there was no successor. I already knew this information. In fact, there was no fighter in this industrial complex. In the original novel, Yu Jong-hyuk had been very confused by this. I bit into the sandwich that Mark gave me. If there isn't a successor, then we have to create one. Inherit the position from another fighter. As far as I know, there are no fighters left in the 73rd demon realm. I'm not going to find them in the demon world. What? I glanced at Jang Haeung. Now was the time. I spoke to the blank-looking Jang Haeung. Hey, talk to the wall. What does that mean? You have a wall. Every time you try to learn something, that wall blocks you. How do you know about the wall? The startled Jang Haeung stared at me. There are ways for me to know, I smirked and replied. Other people might not know it, but Jang Haeung had a wall. To be precise, it was a wall, called the unidentified wall. This wall had been blocking Jang Haeung's growth so far. Isn't it because of the wall that you never learned any skills? That's why you're like this. Lethargic, self-loathing. What? I know you think it is a wall of talent. However, it isn't a wall of talent. It has a different purpose. No, how do you? In any case, quickly talk to it. You can communicate with that wall. Jang Haeung's face turned red after hearing that he could talk to the wall. I wanted to tell him not to worry. After all, I was in the same boat in regards to talking to a wall. Jang Haeung hesitated before slowly opening his mouth. That, quickly. A moment passed before Jang Haeung triggered the skill. The character Jang Haeung has used unidentified wall LV1. Jang Haeung's pupils were white. It wasn't visible to me, but perhaps in Jang Haeung's vision, he would be surrounded by a white wall. A pure white wall with nothing written on it. It wasn't strange for Jang Haeung to get a mental illness if he was blocked by such a wall every time he tried to learn a skill. Jang Haeung carefully opened his mouth. Excuse me. Walnim? Surprisingly, I also heard a message the moment Jang Haeung spoke. The unidentified wall is giving off a wrinkled impression. I didn't know why. Maybe it was because I had a similar wall. Either way, it was good. The unidentified wall is looking at its master. The unidentified wall says, "You aren't qualified yet." As expected, it was just as petulant as the original novel. I was prepared. Hey, don't do that and give your permission. If you don't help, your kid will die. Jang Haeung was surprised by my sudden words and stared at me. The next moment, the unidentified wall spoke. The unidentified wall says, "Who are you?" The unidentified wall says, "How can you hear my voice?" It isn't important who I am. Just give your permission. If it is level 1, can't he use the minimum of features? Why are you blocking him? The unidentified wall is frowning. It was angry at my words, and sparks appeared around Jang Haeung. The probability was putting pressure on me, a constellation. Myth-rated attributes were truly different. This wouldn't be as easy as I expected. I stepped back from Jang Haeung. The sparks that suddenly appeared in the air surprised Mark and the other pub customers. Once I had them evacuated, I opened my mouth again. Are you going to keep acting like this? It isn't good for you. Won't you have to find a new host if he dies? The sparks of probability once again appeared. It was a measure of Jang Haeung's strong potential that he could create such a force with the power of a single skill, despite not being a constellation. Thus, I needed to awaken Jang Haeung here. The unidentified wall says, "You are impudent." The sparks that burst from Jang Haeung's body became increasingly intense. I was a bit baffled because I didn't know the reaction would be to this extent. It happened the moment I thought a small probability storm would occur here. The exclusive skill fourth wall is strongly activated. The sparks around me calmed down at once. To be exact, a larger spark seemed to have swallowed the surrounding sparks. The fourth wall greets the unidentified wall. The unidentified wall is surprised. I was also shocked. The walls could converse with each other? The fourth wall greets the unidentified wall with pleasure. Jang Haeng's face was turning reddish-white. He was clearly seeing this scene. The fourth wall opened its mouth. Friday end. The unidentified wall is starting to shake. I didn't know about the communication between the walls, but just by saying hello, the air around Jang Haeng started to distort into a mysterious form. The unidentified wall says, "You, what are you?" The air around me shook faintly. The fourth wall was moving in a form different from usual. I couldn't express it well. One thing was clear. It seemed to be angry. The unidentified wall is complaining about the pain. The unidentified wall is complaining about the pain. The unidentified wall is complaining about the pain. There were brilliant sparks as Jang Haeng grabbed his head and screamed. How much time passed? There was a heavy feeling, and the unidentified wall sent a message. The unidentified wall says, "W, who are you?" Honestly, I had no idea why Jang Haeng had such a wall. Ways of Survival didn't explain exactly what the unidentified wall was. I thought it would mention it in the ending, but, of course, this didn't mean it was impossible to predict the identity of this wall. The existence of this wall was presumably related to Jang Haeng's job before he moved dimensions. This is the first time I have seen. Jang Haeng was staring into the air with a very perplexed expression. The unidentified wall has recognized its master as the incarnation, Jang Haeng. It was a complicated procedure, but with the help of the fourth wall, Jang Haeng succeeded in being acknowledged by the unidentified wall. Then a new window popped up in front of Jang Haeng for the very first time. Enter the modifier or name of the presence you want to send a message to. Thanks to the fourth wall, I also saw the message. Jang Haeng stared at me. "W, what is this? What should I enter?" In fact, it was because of this ability that I had to bring Jang Haeng with me. I had to borrow the wall's strength through Jang Haeng so that I could have the power to fight against those fucking nebulae. Please enter the names I will tell you. Yes. I called out several names. They were all names of characters who had fought with fighters in the demon world in the original novel of Ways of Survival. Then another window popped up. Please enter a message to send. What should I write? I want to become a fighter. Please help. Will it work? I don't know. Just try it first. Jang Haeng sent the message. Then we waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. 3 minutes. 10 minutes. Jang Haeng asked, "Did I do it properly?" I guess it failed. The damn star stream had no consideration for newbies. I asked for help so earnestly, but no one sent a reply. We sent a few more messages. I'm looking for someone who will make me a fighter. I need the skill of the fighter. Please help. No matter how many times he sent the message, there was no reply. Maybe they thought it was a spam message and didn't answer. Damn. I had no talent for writing, so I didn't know what message I should send to get a reply. It would have been nice if Han Soo-young was here. She would have come up with a good idea. Jang Haeng frowned and thought about something for a while. Then he opened his mouth. I need to get a reply? Can I write what I want? Have you thought of something? Jang Haeng lightly nodded and typed his message. I am a 15-year-old schoolgirl. Hey, wait. Before I could stop him, Jang Haeng pressed the send message button. The message was sent to random constellations because no recipient was entered. The message wasn't even sent to a particular person. I shouted in a frustrated manner. You are dealing with constellations. Do you think that would work? Just watch. What the hell did this guy eat? The next moment, a reply has arrived. We stared at each other with bemused expressions and confirmed the reply. To my surprise, the constellation who replied was someone I knew. Sender Abyssal Black Flame Dragon. Chapter 206. Unidentified Wall. Part 3. Jang Haeyoung started talking in earnest with the Abyssal Black Flame Dragon and laughed with pleasure. I watched Jang Haeyoung and slightly scolded him. What's so funny? It's just funny to talk to this kid. Jang Haeyoung was a strange guy who treated a high-ranking constellation as a friend, but the even more ridiculous thing was that the Abyssal Black Flame Dragon had sent a reply. This jerk only cared about Han Soo-young, so why was he responding to the wrong message? Then, as if to defend the Black Dragon, Jang Haeyoung shook his head. I don't think he is a bad guy like you think. What nonsense is this? Did you fall for him? He is more gentle when speaking than you think. Gentle? A bastard who replied to a 15-year-old schoolgirl is gentle? I wondered if I should explain the nasty context when Jang Haeyoung replied. He replied, because I am 15 years old. What? He replied, because you are 15 years old? What a complete trash. I knew that the Abyssal Black Flame Dragon was cruel and tasteless, but I didn't know he had such preferences. I was suddenly a bit worried for Han Soo-young. Why are you so agitated? He is just happy to have a friend. He says he is 15 years old. What bullshit. I don't know how old he is, but is there a 15-year-old constellation? At this moment, a setting suddenly rose in my mind. The constellations living in the eternal star stream are accustomed to confining themselves in certain frameworks to protect their sense of self. A representative example is age. They tend to transfer themselves to a specific age and think they are that age. Don't tell me? Even so, wasn't 15 years old too much? Really? Then a scream was heard from inside the meeting room. It was Han Myung-go. I turned and spoke to the startled Jang Haeyoung. I have to go talk to him. I'll be back in a minute. I know. What should I ask? Just let him go. In any case, he isn't a warrior. I'd rather you talk to someone else. Don't you have the list I gave you earlier? Try them again. Jang Haeyoung nodded. I was uneasy after seeing his excited expression, but I thought it would be okay. This was originally his ability. The awakening of the unidentified wall was a bit faster than the original novel, but this was the best for now. The industrial complex's revolution was impossible without the help of the wall. I opened the door to the meeting room. Han Myung-go had just woken up and was covered in sweat. Why did I faint? I quietly closed the door of the meeting room and replied, you fainted after remembering the pain of childbirth. Sweat was flowing down Han Myung-go's face like he had a nightmare. That's it? Asmodeus probably cursed you as well. That son of a bitch. Han Myung-go expressed his hatred for the Demon King more directly than before. It was originally a dangerous thing, but now he had left Asmodeus' sight thanks to the 4-in demonic beheading sword. I pulled out the chair again and sat back down. Listen again. What child did you give birth to, and why did you receive Asmodeus' favor? I first have to explain why I had a child. I have a rough idea. Is it due to the Dark Keeper that we fought before? Right before we split apart, Han Myung-go had been affected by the parasitic tentacles of the Dark Keeper. Usually, such a thing didn't necessarily mean the conception of a demon species, but it happened directly with Han Myung-go. That isn't the case. It isn't because of the Dark Keeper that I had the child. Then, it is because of the curse. Asmodeus' curse dealt the final blow to Han Myung-go, who was infected by the Dark Keeper. Asmodeus' curse consumed probability to realize the most terrible thing that the target thought of. In other words, I understand. By the way, is that possible? A man's body giving birth, don't ask about that part. I lightly nodded. It was the minimum courtesy for the elder who had an unbelievable experience. We were silent for a moment. It suddenly felt weird that I was talking to Han Myung-go like this. Kim Dokja thought, it is a strange feeling. Before the destruction came, Han Myung-go was a person who made life hard for office worker Kim Dokja. He was one of the top-ranked bosses to be avoided. Certainly, there were days like that. It was a time when I felt bitter over the 3,000 convenience store bento and when I had to count every bit of my monthly salary. Now those days were gone. Kim Dokja and Han Myung-go were no longer an office worker and department head. Instead, they were talking about a demon king. Kim Dok, no, you Jonghyuk SSI. Do you know what it's like to be a father? I was a bit baffled by Han Myung-go's sudden words. I don't know. I learnt. In fact, it was hard to say if Han Myung-go should be called a mother or a father, but I decided to move on because this wasn't the important thing. Han Myung-go had a serious expression. It was painful. The words sounded much more painful than any of Han Myung-go's previous statements. I was also happy. I looked at Han Myung-go with surprise. At this moment, I realized the identity of my strange feeling. Maybe I didn't want to admit it. Everybody changed. Whether they were good or evil, a child or an adult. She is a very pretty daughter. I would love to see her once. Is she in the demon world? Now she isn't with me. His expression darkened and I got a hunch. Then. It is a long story. Will you help? Tell me first. I would like to hear your story. Han Myung-go hadn't come directly into the household of the Demon King. In a place that I didn't know, Han Myung-go's story had continued. He took his daughter and broke through the scenario alone. Capture the flag. The War of Kings. The 5 disasters. I couldn't believe such a story had happened in places I couldn't see. I couldn't believe that Han Myung-go could show such devotion to someone. On the other hand, I had to admit it. I was no longer the old Kim Dokja. The man in front of me wasn't the old Han Myung-go. I didn't know if the birth of his child was the trigger. The only thing that was clear was that Han Myung-go had changed. It was tough. Yes, it was hard. I almost died many times. At the end, I fell into a crisis I couldn't escape from. He was finally driven to the brink at a time when the Dark Castle scenario hadn't officially started yet. Han Myung-go was surrounded by demons and demon nobles and realized he could no longer defend his child. Then he prayed for the first time in his life. He prayed for someone to protect his child. If this child lived, he would do anything. To his surprise, a presence answered his prayers. A beautiful child. It was Asmodeus. Did the Demon King steal your child? I felt bad because of the terrible things I imagined. Asmodeus was the Demon King of rage and lust. It was obvious what would happen if a child entered his hands. However, Han Myung-go's expression was calm. She is safe. After all, she is a child born from Asmodeus' curse. And, the Demon King isn't in a situation where he can touch my daughter. What does that mean? The Demon King has made my daughter his incarnation body. I seem to know what happened. It might be a whim, but the Demon King Asmodeus made Han Myung-go's child one of his incarnation bodies. As one of the child's parents, Han Myung-go was given a demon noble title. That's how I became a demon. After hearing this, I felt that Han Myung-go's life was very difficult. His life might be considered successfully because he got a title, but it might be considered a failure because his child was taken. Han Myung-go's eyes were somber as he opened his mouth again. I want to save my daughter. For a moment, I thought I heard wrong. What did he want? I won't speak long words. Help me. I won't forget your grace if you help me this once. What was this situation all of a sudden? He filmed a live theater all by himself and now he wanted me to help him? You've been watching me for a long time and should know well. I am a human who is a coward. However, this is something I can't concede on. Last night was out of my expectations. I was scared, but I actually didn't hurt anyone. The executioners were excited by the appearance of the Guardian and did what they wanted. Han Myungo swore the oath of existence and couldn't lie to me. Then this wasn't a lie. I decided to respond rationally. I'm sorry, but I have no plans to fight Asmodeus. This would become complicated if one of the 72 demon kings were lost. It would attract foreign forces when the revolution hadn't even begun yet. Han Myungo's next reaction was surprising. You don't have to fight Asmodeus. You just have to continue doing what you were doing. Start a revolution and kill the Duke. I will help you. Aren't you on the Duke's side? Originally that was the case. Now that things have become like this, I think it will be okay to help you. What do you mean? Asmodeus didn't want me to help the Duke. He had a suggestion for me. If I made the story he wanted, he would return my daughter. That's why I attached myself to Duke Siswitz. This part wasn't in the original novel. It was no wonder. From the beginning, Han Myungo wasn't present in the novel. I struggled for a moment before asking, what story does the Demon King want? The king of the 73rd Demon Realm. Han Myungo slowly raised his head and stared at me. Han Myungo's eyes were exactly the same as the interviewer on the day I joined Minosoft. The Demon King, he told me to make the 73rd Demon King with my own hands. Yu Jonghyuk was starting at the night sky with indifferent eyes. The sky with different constellations from Earth was visible. Yu Jonghyuk's body leaning against the heaven-shaking sword looked thinner than usual as he counted the stars. His body was covered with blood and his face was wounded. There was a second-grade monster that had just been defeated lying in front of him. The 15th scenario is finished. Planet Lugratia. Yu Jonghyuk came here through a personal scenario from one of the constellations of this world. Originally, he would have proceeded with Earth's scenarios. However, he had strong colleagues this regression and decided to leave the scenarios to them. The situation was growing faster than his previous regression. It was right for him to stockpile his power when he could. This current power wouldn't be enough if he entered the scenarios in the 20s. I need to be stronger. That's why Yu Jonghyuk replaced the main scenario with personal scenarios since the 11th main scenario. He also picked the hardest personal scenarios with the most rewards. Sometimes he even challenged personal scenarios that were too reckless for him. Fight, fight and fight again. As always, he trained and overworked his body and spirit. He thought it would fill a bit of the sense of loss that he couldn't understand. Strangely, the more he fought, the greater the emptiness became. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is looking at you sadly. Yu Jonghyuk frowned and glared at the sky. Demon-like Judge of Fire. Yu Jonghyuk didn't know why this constellation came so often recently. It was a constellation he had little contact with in the past. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire is asking why you aren't looking for Kim Dokja. Kim Dokja is dead. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire is shaking her head while holding back tears. Yu Jonghyuk didn't understand why a constellation was dwelling so much on the death of a single incarnation. The thing he didn't understand was the next message. Your notoriety is spreading in the 73rd Demon Realm. Again? The message was unforgettable. Yu Jonghyuk didn't know why his notoriety was rising in a distant place like the 73rd Demon Realm. At first, he thought Kim Dokja was alive and impersonating him. However, even if Kim Dokja was alive, there was no reason for him to do this. Wait. Perhaps Kim Dokja is alive and in danger? Maybe Kim Dokja was alive. Maybe he lived alone in the horizon of the story without any scenarios and beyond that damn fate. Thus, he survived. Maybe he was asking for help. That guy, who always moved ahead by himself, was in danger and asking for help for the first time. There was no way to ask for help in the absence of a channel, so. Yu Jonghyuk's expression became complicated as he stared up at the sky. The 73rd Demon Realm.